Hi everyone, my name is Ann Ellis and I am the Children, Youth and Family Minister at Mount Seymour United Church in North Vancouver, and I'd like to welcome you to our video for our Children and Youth Gathering for November 22nd, 2020. This week is our last week talking about a future with hope because next week, November 29th, is the first Sunday in Advent, which, by the way, is all about hope. I'm filming this video at my home this week. You can see I am not in my office because I have a cold. And right now, when we have colds, it's best if we stay home and take care of ourselves so that we don't pass those colds around to other people. This week, instead of an activity after our story is the activity. So I'm going to give you a list of all the things that you need to help tell the story today. And it's a pretty long list. So I'm going to create an image that you can pause so that you have the list on your screen and you can go and find all those items after I give you the list. It's also in the description below and would have been in the email that came to your families earlier this week. Again, if you came by this video not through our weekly email to children, youth, and families, the subscription link is also in the description below if you would like to subscribe and get updates to all the things that we are doing in our children, youth, and family communities at Mount Seymour United Church. So, here is what we're going to need today. You are going to want to find a really pretty stone or crystal or something that just you think is really pretty. I'm going to use this blue heart that I was given a few years ago. It's ceramic, I think, but I really love it, and it's a nice visual thing to look at. So I'm going to use that heart today. You're going to want to also go and find something like a cinnamon stick, something that has a really good smell. Maybe it's tea or some other kind of spice that you really like. You're going to want to go and find something that smells good. You're going to want to find something that makes noise. Perhaps you have a shell in your house that when you hold it up to your ear, it sounds like the sea inside, or you have something that is like a rattle or a little drum. I have I have this little frog, um, and when I make noise with the frog, it sounds like a frog outside. So something that makes sound. You're also want to get something like a bit of salt, something that has taste. I've got a little salt shaker, but you might want to put like a little bit of salt in a dish, and just a few, like grains. You don't need a lot of salt. You're going to want to find something that is nice to the touch. So maybe a feather or a soft, cuddly, um, stuffy, or if you've got a fleece blanket that's really cozy, something that is just really nice to touch. And you're going to want to find for yourself something that represents Jesus and your faith. Perhaps you have a cross. I've got my olive wood cross that I got in Nazareth that was carved out of olive wood and is really nice to hold. So that's going to be my symbol of Jesus. Today, you might have something else in your home that represents your faith for you, um, a dove or a spiral or a, a nativity, if you've got your nativity sets out already, or anything that when you look at it, you're reminded of your faith. Um, and you're going to want to find something that can represent prayer or poetry or songs. That might just simply be a piece of paper where you might write a prayer on or you might write a poem on. I'm going to use my book of Psalms. This is a tiny little book that I got in Israel, in Tel Aviv, that has the Psalms written in it, and they're written in English and in Hebrew. So that's going to be my prayer representation. And finally, you're going to want to grab just a piece of paper that doesn't necessarily represent your prayer or poetry, a pair of scissors, and something to draw with. So we're going to make just a little bit for this activity. So yeah, that's a pretty big long list, and it's going to help us tell our story later on. So you'll want to pause this video as soon as that list shows up on your screen. Go and gather all of those things together, and then come on back and we will share our story. Welcome back. Hope you've gathered up all of your supplies, but of course you can pause this video again if you need to. I've got my cup of tea because my throat's a little bit sore. And we're just going to take a couple of minutes to breathe and settle in and ground ourselves in this sacred space. And we take time to remember that the welcome we extend at Mount Seymour United Church and in my own home is as broad and deep as we can make it. You are welcome here no matter how old or how young you are, no matter your marital status, your financial situation, your economic background. You are welcome here no matter your cultural heritage or ethnic background. And you are welcome here, whatever your sexual orientation is, your gender identity, or your gender expression is. You are welcome here. And you are welcome here if you consider yourself to be a Christian or if you are a part of another faith tradition. And you are welcome here as a person who is curious and full of wonder and seeks the ideals of justice, peace, and compassion. You are welcome here. Mount Seymour United Church and my own home are on the unceded and ancestral territory of the Tsleil-Waututh people, who are members of the Coast Salish, that also include the Squamish and the Musqueam. And they have been stewards of this land from time immemorial. And as a settler here, I owe them a great debt, both in their stewardship of the land and the way that my ancestry and my continued presence in this world has oppressed our Indigenous peoples. I express my gratitude and thanks for being able to live and work and play in this land, and I commit myself to the process of reconciliation as all of our peoples move forward, welcoming and honoring the diversity that all cultures bring to our world. And I take a moment as well to honor and acknowledge the watershed, the Seymour watershed that brings life to this part of the world. Without the rivers and the streams and the rain and the snow falling on the mountains, there would be no life. There would be no trees or plants. There would be no birds. There would be no animals or insects, and there certainly wouldn't be any people. And so the watershed gives us life. And for that, I am unbelievably grateful. Here at Mount Seymour, we remember and we honor somebody who did such amazing things and told such wonderful stories that people just had to follow him. And when they asked him who he was, he said, "I am a light in this world." Maybe. There we go. I'm going to move this just down a little bit before I light our candle. And he also said, "You, my beloveds, are lights in this world. A city on a hilltop cannot be hidden. Similarly, it would be silly to light a lamp and then cover it with a bowl. When somebody lights a lamp, they place it on a table or a desk, and that light illumines the entire house. You are like that illuminating light. Let your light shine everywhere you go, that you may illumine creation, so that people everywhere may see your good actions, may see creation at its fullest in your bright light." Again, that passage is from Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 to 16. And I say it every week because it is one of my favorite pieces of scripture. And I think about it and try to remember it every day as a practice for myself, to remember to allow my own light to shine, to illumine creation. And I love those words. So the story that we're going to share today, some of you will have heard before at Mount Seymour United Church. It's one of my favorite stories, and I want to share it again as we end our Future with Hope theme. We've been talking a lot about plants and the natural world, and this story will help us to connect to the natural world in a deeper, faithful way. But I've changed the story a bit this time to help it fit with our current context of COVID-19 and the restrictions that keep us isolated and maybe feeling a little bit alone. But before we begin the story, we need to make one more piece to tell the story, and that's to make a few paper hearts. We want to make maybe 3 or 4 of them at least, but you could make more if you wanted. And they don't have to be very big. They can be quite small actually. So what I'm going to do is just show you how to make paper hearts super quickly, which I'm going to guess that some of you already know how to do. So I'm going to take my piece of paper, and you can see I'm just going to fold a tiny bit of it because I don't need my hearts to be very big. So I've just got a little bit of paper folded like that. And with my pen, I'm going to draw, here's the folded part, the part with the fold. I'm just going to draw a half a heart shape, which kind of just looks like the beginning of the letter 2, or number 2, not a letter, number. See, like that. Can you see it's a little, there we go, like this. So if I was going to continue with my 2, I would go like that. But I'm not making 2s, I'm making hearts. So I'm going to draw a couple more heart shapes. So I've got a series down like this. I'm going to take my scissors and just following the line that I drew, I'm going to quickly cut them out. Okay, so I'm going to end up with 5 of them. But the number, again, doesn't really matter. You could have 3 or 4 or 10. It really depends on how many hearts that you want. So now I've got some little paper hearts that I can use for my story. Like this. And they're all kind of different, which is cool. Okay, so I hope you are ready to listen and participate in the story. As the various different objects come up in the story, you will see them and you can pick them up and hold them and imagine that the story is happening right in your hands. Okay, so here we go.
This is a Quaker story written by Michael Gibson about listening for God and some of the ways we sense God's presence. God is never far away. God's spirit is always close, closer than breath. But unless we stop to listen, we might not notice. We practice listening. We listen with our whole bodies, our minds, our hearts, our imaginations, and our souls. Sometimes God touches us deep in a place we call the heart. A place where God is at home in us and we are at home in God. We feel God's presence there and we say, "Here I am, God." Then Spirit helps us to know how to love, what to do, and who to be. We practice listening. Listening with our whole selves. Sometimes God touches us through another person, even if we need to stay distanced. God in one person sees God in another person. Heart touches heart, and we say, "Welcome, God." Then the Spirit helps us to know how to love, what to do, and who to be. And we practice listening. We listen with our whole selves. Sometimes God touches us through the gifts of creation. God touches our eyes, our noses, our ears, our tongues, and our skin. We feel God's presence and we say, "Welcome, God." Then the Spirit helps us to know how to love, what to do, and who to be. We practice listening. We listen with our whole selves. Sometimes God touches us through sacred story. God in our hearts works together with the words of the stories, and we feel Spirit's presence. And what are these stories? They are the ancient stories of the people who came close to God in the desert. They are the story of Jesus and his parables, which are gifts to us. They are the stories of God's people who lived in faith and love. We feel the Spirit's presence and we say, "Welcome, God." Then Spirit helps us to know how to love, what to do, and who to be. And we practice listening. We listen with our whole selves. Sometimes God touches us through a community gathered for worship. And although we stay apart right now, God touches hearts. God is present in a special way. God connects us even when we are separate. And we say, "Here we are, God. Yes, we are your people." Then we become the presence of God in the world. And we become God's eyes and ears and mouth and hands and feet. Wherever we are, we practice listening. And God can come to us in many different ways. We listen with our whole selves, our bodies, our minds, our hearts, our imaginations, and our souls. And God's Spirit helps us to know how to love, what to do, and who to be. God is present in a special way. God connects us even when we are separate. God's Spirit helps us to know how to love, what to do, and who to be.
I wonder what part of the story you liked the best. And I wonder what part of the story seems the most important to you right now. I wonder if there is any part of the story that we could leave out and still have all of the story that we need. And I wonder what other ways you have felt God's presence. And I wonder what helps you listen for God. Well, now that you have all the parts of the story gathered together, you could share it with your family. And you don't need to worry about getting all of the parts just right or remembering the words right or wrong. Just share what you remember. God in your heart will help you to know what to do, how to love, and who to be. Maybe you will decide to keep your paper hearts someplace where you can see them. And remember that even though we are apart as a community, we are still together and connected through God's love and our love for each other. We want to stay healthy and safe so that when we can gather together, everyone will be there and we'll get to see each other's smiling faces. Next week is the start of Advent, and we have a whole bunch of new activities and things that we're going to do and learn and play with. There's still time for you to order your Advent kits from Mount Seymour United Church. The order form is in the email sent to your families. You'll be able to pick up your kits next Sunday on November 29th. There's a lot of fun stuff to be had in your kit, and you will have the opportunity to have a wonderful, fun, and safe Advent with your family at home. This is our last week for our Seed of Hope prayer. Next week, we're going to be learning a whole new prayer. That's actually a song, if I'm remembering correctly. So let's make our final Seed of Hope prayer a really good one. Remember, it's a repeat after me and a hand gesture prayer full of actions. So here we go. This is a seed of hope that we plant in the soil. This is a seed of hope that we plant in the soil. This is the rain. This is the rain that waters the seed that we plant in the soil. That waters the seed that we plant in the soil. This is the sun that follows the rain. This is the sun that follows the rain, that waters the seed we plant in the soil. This is the root that digs down in the dirt. This is the root that digs down in the dirt, that feeds the seed that we plant in the soil, that feeds the seed that we plant in the soil. And this is the plant that grows up towards the sun. And this is the plant that grows up towards the sun, that shines on the seed that we plant in the soil, that shines on the seed that we plant in the soil. These are the branches that embrace God's love. These are the branches that embrace God's love. This is the seed of hope Amen. This is the seed of hope. Amen. Thank you very much for being with me this week, and I hope you enjoyed the story of listening for God, and I hope that you maybe take some of the ideas from the listening of God story out into creation and listen for God out there. And we'll see you next week for Advent 1, Hope. Bye.